Hey guys, it's Kevin. I just wanted to make a video, kind of a response back to some of the recent news that came out of Boise, some of the tragedy that struck our community. It's just kind of maddening. I just made a video just a few days ago to talk about all the positive things in Boise and all these wonderful things, and turned around the next day, and we hear that an individual committed a really serious act of violence against a number of children and some adults, and actually one of those children lost their lives. And so I just wanted to maybe throw out some ideas, throw out some of my thoughts. It's not really a suggestion, tell you how to think or what you should do. I just wanted to go over, as the title of the video suggests, just a therapist's response to some of this tragedy. So initially I felt just a lot of anger, just like everyone else, reading through some of the comment sections, some of the threads, and just seeing a lot of this frustration and this anger directed at the individual. There's obviously the political discussions that start coming into play, people talking before they don't know the facts, and it's just so much chaos. And I could slip into that. I slipped into this rage, this anger, this frustration, especially being a control freak, knowing that there's nothing I could have done. There's nothing, and that's the most frustrating part, especially anytime somebody passes away, there's a death, there's a tragedy, that feeling of there's nothing I can do in this moment. There's nothing that I can do to help really take away the pain or change something. That's the most frustrating thing. But what I've tried to do in the last couple of days is just focus on what do I have control over. And so that's just helped me find a little bit of peace. I think as therapists and social workers, counselors, people in the helping profession, I think it's our job to really evaluate ourselves during some of these times. And so I'll just go through some of my process. I obviously went over the tragedy. I mentioned that the youngest, the 3-year-old, passed away, and just my response was just that, a lot of that anger and that rage, and feeling terrible for these families and these parents. I have a little son that's just 13 months now, and I couldn't imagine something bad happening to him or anything like that. I can't even wrap my head around how I could be in that moment. So one of the things that came to my mind, I'm talking about this obviously this observed rage in the community, and this feeling of rage that a lot of people in Boise have. This is something that struck Boise, that we have this mindset that these things don't happen here. These things don't happen in Boise. This happens elsewhere. It doesn't happen in our community. We're this positive, supporting, culturally diverse, have these values that we share. I used to work in parks and recreation. I used to work a lot with refugees in these after-school programs, and we'd also go and visit. We'd go take just a van full of games and soccer and football and capture the flag, roll up to these apartment complexes where a lot of them kind of live and are initially settled, and we played games with all these kids. It was a ton of fun. And so it kind of falls in line with just the message of Boise. We're trying to be the most livable city in the world, and then here we have this happen, and here this strikes us, and so it's really taking us all back. I'm not much of a connoisseur of poetry, but something that struck out to me, it's a poem by Dylan Thomas. It's called Rage Against the Dying of the Light. And I think, I don't have the meaning or the interpretation of this poem down, but just this notion of raging against something we can't change. The sun will go down, whether that's in our lives, through death, through tragedy, maybe just through a closing of a chapter in our life. But raging against the dying of the light, not sitting passively by as the sun goes down, but continuing to fight into the very last moment and into the darkness, and wading into the darkness, leaning into the darkness, leaning into this chaos. And so it just makes me feel like, okay, I have control of that. I can't impact what happened, but I can show up tomorrow at my job. When I work with teens, when I work with families, when I work with tragedy on the unit and chaos and people going through chaos in the worst times of life, I can still do that. I can still try to do my best. Obviously, there's going to be times that I fail, and I'm not the person I need to be. I'm not always going to have an answer or always do the best thing. I might slip, I might lose my temper, I might be angry. But I can make that conscious choice. I'm going to keep raging. I'm going to keep fighting. It's not this negative rage. It's this intensity. I'm going to line up, and I'm going to try my best, despite everything else, and despite all the negativity and the chaos, I'm going to be a helper. I'm not going to play into the chaos and the tragedy. I'm going to help. I'm going to be a helper. And that kind of goes into my next thing, just an encouragement to what I call shield bearers. These are your, this is a term that I got from a book. I can't think of the author. It's called On Combat. It's basically looking at veterans, law enforcement, people in high stress jobs, and how they manage that. And so one of the things that this author talks about in the book is shield bearers. And it's not just military or law enforcement. It's counselors, the teachers, the social workers, the student coaches, the athletic coaches, all these people that in our community that we look to help and to protect and to support, all those type of folks, and even just the parent that shows up. I think that would fall into that account. But just a word of encouragement, when bad things happen, and when tragedy kind of strikes, sometimes it winds up at our door. And I just want to offer words of encouragement, especially if you're in this job. A lot of the times, especially as a therapist, a lot of the things that we do, especially in a psych hospital where I work at, a lot of these things go unsung. You throw HIPAA and confidentiality on top of that. Your good deeds don't get plastered across Instagram and everything else, and people don't see the day-to-day fight and the day-to-day struggle, whether you're a police officer, a firefighter, a teacher. People don't see what you do, and you're not going to get credit for it, but it speaks volumes of your character to continue to show up and continue to do that job and to hold that shield, to protect, to support. I think there's a lot of value personally in that. And so, wrapping it up, I just, I'm grateful to be in this field. I'm grateful for other people that are here to help and to protect and support. And I just want to offer words of encouragement, when tragedy maybe strikes your community, or it has, and those of you who stood up to help, I applaud you, and I just pray and hope that we continue as therapists and helpers to keep doing that. So anyhow, that's all I have, guys. Also got the flag in the background. Figured it'd be sin not to with the 4th coming up. Maybe do a video just on gratitude and its effects. Maybe do that pretty soon. Anyhow, that's all I have. If you have other ideas, you can let me know, message me, email me. I'll get back to you, and we'll go from there. So thank you, guys.